Thank you. Right, and this and this and this. And I think we are set. Ladies and gentlemen, a special edition of Louis B. Free Radio Show, Brain Food from the Heartland. I have returning to the show, and I love this guy, Dr. Joel Kahn. Doc, welcome back.
Well, thank you. And we just snuck in an interview for Heart Month before Heart Month is over. So perfect timing.
Oh, God, that's yes, Heart Month. That absolutely. And every month should be Heart Month, correct? I mean,
we need warp speed heart attack, because heart attack, we should be attacking heart attacks. All these things can be made into memes and t-shirts and coffee mugs immediately. But right, we've had a very, very disruptive last 3-4 years. But despite all that, more people died of heart disease than any other cause in the Western world. And not a lot of people are talking about it as a preventable, reversible, diagnosable disease. So let's just jump into the world of living happy, living healthy, and living heart healthy.
If you don't mind, just a little bit about your path. I find it fascinating.
Yeah, I was born with a little noise that a pediatrician heard with a stethoscope. That's called a murmur. That led me as an infant, before I remembered, to a pediatric cardiologist, couple of tests, not a big deal other than worrying my mother, but I started seeing a pediatric cardiologist through childhood. You would have asked me at age 10 or 12, I would have said, I want to be one of those guys, the cardiologist with all the cool toys. I had some other interests, but really, then I learned that I really loved science and biology. I had a great biology teacher. So again, firmly by high school, you would ask me, I would have said, not just I want to be a doctor, no doctors in the family. I want to be a cardiologist. Second thing was, I grew up in a home where we honored the dietary laws for Judaism called kosher. And I was pretty good with them. I mean, it wasn't an Orthodox family, but I was careful. And it meant that every time I was going to eat, I had to think for a minute. If it was at home, it was no big deal. But overnight camp, and every restaurant and every road trip with the family, it was a question, was I eating A, B, C, or D, or going maybe hungry? And that's pretty much a good mindset for all healthy, mindful eating, is pausing for a minute. Is it moving me towards health or not? And then around 17 years old, I got accepted into med school at the University of Michigan. They had an accelerated program for baby docs, as they called it. And I went up to Ann Arbor, and there was hardly anything I'd eat except the salad bar. So I transitioned by age 18 to pretty much a fully vegan diet. And I'm almost 64, and all those years have been reds and yellows and whites and purples and greens and blue plant-based foods. Kept me, I would say, very healthy compared to my peers and my cardiology peers. And then I just had a vigorous cardiology career, and to just shut it down about 10 years ago, I said, I know a lot about nutrition. I've been studying nutrition for a long time because of my own personal choice, my wife's choice with me all those years as a nurse who pretty much on the same day adopted the same diet at age 18. But I didn't know the rest. I didn't know mind body. I didn't know energy medicine. I didn't know Ayurvedic. I didn't know supplements. And I went back and did a whole lot of courses and changed my career, kind of walked away from what most people would say was pretty amazing, successful hospital career, to do only preventive cardiology, to not treat your heart attack, but to make sure you never have a heart attack. That's certainly a statement I make to every patient. If we do things right, you're never going to need to see the inside of a hospital. And we work hard at that. And if they work hard, I work hard. It's a mutual agreement. So I'm cooking with energy, as I say, about to hit 64, and more excited about preventive cardiology. It is not just only eating green salads. You have to be very high tech and know your testing and know your genetics and know what's called your precision medicine. So a lot I write about, somebody would say, that's not very vegan. You're talking about CT scans and ultrasounds and genetic testing. But anyways, you have to do it all to really be effective. So
Dr. Kahn, I'm sorry. There's always the critics out there. That's not vegan. How is scanning? How is testing not vegan? The other interesting thing that I've experienced over many years. People say, "Oh, so vegan, that's a healthy diet." I said, "Wait a minute." I said, I could drink certain beers and eat certain potato chips all day long and still be vegan. That's not a healthy. That's certainly far from
Very,
healthy
very
diet.
important. And many people credit Dr. Colin Campbell of the massively influential book, The China Study, for bringing in the term WFPB. Some people call whiffabib diet, which is just as a joke, but it's a fun way to say it. But whole food, plant-based. A potato chip is not a whole food. Might be plant-based. It's not a whole food, but a potato is a whole food, and a salad is a whole food, and whole wheat pasta is essentially a whole food, as close to unprocessed as possible, and that's the ticket to success.
Yeah, that's the key. With all the products out there today, and again, I'm glad that they are out there for many reasons that I won't go into, the animal welfare, etc. Yet those are not health. If you're eating the processed burgers, the vegan burgers all the time, they're not. Yeah, they may have a lot of protein in them, but it's not a whole food. It's not. Once in a while, you may feel differently. I think once in a while is a treat, whatever, but not as a basis for.
Yeah, I had one Impossible Burger in 2022. So far, not in 2023, and probably be about one or two for the year, I imagine, usually at some social event going on. Sorry, I dropped my power cord and I probably need some power. But all is good.
So when getting to where you are today, I do want to mention the summit first before a couple of times.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. There's different ways to reach out to people. One of my favorites is called Be a Doctor. So I do a lot. I am a real doctor. I see people one at a time, and we go through everything from their dental health to their diet, to their fitness, to their sleep, to their stress and trauma, and the whole gamut. But there are ways to educate people in a bigger mass format, and that's important too. So I'm on social media, Instagram, YouTube, and all the other channels. But one of the more interesting digital ways to influence people, educate people, is called an online summit. And I had not done that yet. And I was contemplating writing a book, would have been my 7th book. But I sort of judged I think I could reach more people with an online summit. So there's a summit that's launching in 48 hours, February 28th. But don't worry, if you're not prepared for that, it's going to play again the following week. It's 51 interviews of 49 experts. It's a plant-based Lapapalooza, if that's the right term. It's got an interview with Dr. Dean Ornish, interview with Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. My co-host is Joel Furman, MD, who's been on your show many times, New York Times bestselling author. We've got Dan Buettner from the Blue Zones, and Rich Roll, world famous athlete Rich Roll, and I can't even tell you. And then some names you're not going to know, major academic figures. Again, going back to the CT imaging, the precision medicine, the genetics, topics I think are crucial, because I think eating a salad is amazing, but for really preventing you ever having a heart attack, it's not quite enough. So it's the whole gamut. It starts February 28th. The easiest way is to go to a website of the company that's hosting it and help me. It's drtalks.com. It's very easy, www.drtalks.com. There's a little button that says Summit Schedules, because the Reverse Your Heart Disease Naturally Summit may be the biggest they do this year, but it's certainly not the only one they do this year. And if you go to Summit Schedule at drtalks.com, you can register for free. You can get your replay, which will occur the week after. Also, you can have all the videos and audios and transcripts. That's all available too. So there's many different ways to really maximize on all of this.
They can also link from your website.
Yeah, if you certainly, I've been blasting out on social media and email. Just go over to LinkedIn, Joel Kahn, MD, and many other places. So thank you for bringing that up. It's really high quality. I personally did 46 of the 51 interviews, 45. I so enjoyed I met some major minds, and it's really relevant stuff. I mean, it's stuff on your diet, on your fitness, on your sleep, on your yoga, on your energy medicine, on and on and on. So you don't want to miss it.
Absolutely not. And Dr. Kahn's website is drjoel.com. We've got all these links up, louisfreeshow.com, louisbfree.com, wfmj.com, etc. But just go drjoel.com. You've got a wealth of information on your website and lots of articles, and you can spend a lot of time and get a tremendous education there.
Well, thank you. I do, if I have one fault, it's I'm a junkie for science. And I don't
Good
mean
thing.
to use that term, in a negative way. But I mean, I must read 100 medical articles a week. If you don't believe me, go to my Twitter, which is at Dr. J. Kahn, DRJKAHN, because I tweet out. I LinkedIn, I Facebook. I have newsletters. I have a podcast. And I really take pride in being up to date on the latest nutrition and fitness and sleep and lifestyle and prevention and genetic science. So it's good stuff. So we really have some great people at drtalks.com for this summit.
And with all the things that you do, and when I see what you do on social media, et cetera, and all the articles and all the doctor talks, et cetera, begs the question, what do you do in your spare time? I guess the answer is there is no spare time, right?
Yeah, well, there's a bit. I have a wonderful wife of almost 42 years.
Beautiful.
I've actually taken a bit of a work sabbatical. I moved from Michigan down to southeastern Florida for 5 weeks. That's just about to end. It's another 85-degree glorious day down here. It's crazy because we've had ice storms and snow in Michigan. But I've been able to work. I do a lot of telehealth and a telezoom, and I had a live clinic in Miami. It's just been a crazy experiment that was wildly successful. So I got that lovely woman and 3 little dogs and 3 wonderful kids that are all married and 1 granddaughter. And I read other stuff. I'm reading a book about the life of Helen Keller right now. I write a blog a week. I do a podcast a week. Of course, that's all part of the science and the work passion. I get interviewed by other people. I mean, I work out every day. I take a lot of interest in my 90-year-old mother. And then at the end of the day, I don't do a lot else. Occasionally a little Netflix series my wife finds that's just for laughter. I like to laugh.
Yeah, laughter's good, right? Correct. I mean, on a lot of levels, correct, Doc?
On a lot of levels. I mean, you gotta love your weaknesses and love your infirmities and love your 5 extra pounds in your aging body. I mean, a lot of my peers, there's interesting waves. In the last 5 years, like everybody in my field wrote a book about gut health. I didn't because it's a little distant from the heart, although I could. There's enough data, but it's a little distant. The latest, and then there was neurology books, brain books, Alzheimer's books. Currently, it's all about longevity books. So some of my peers are writing books called Forever Young. And frankly, that's bullshit, if you don't mind me saying.
No, you can say, wait, let me do my disclaimer. I'm sorry.
We're getting closer. There's a really interesting concept. There's some science called longevity escape velocity. Right now, it's estimated that it takes 4 years of science to bring enough scientific contributions, practical ones, that we gain 1 extra year of life. Now, COVID has really messed that up, and heart attacks have messed that up because health longevity in the United States is actually dropping in the last couple of years. That's very disturbing. It shouldn't be happening. But generally, lifespan gets longer and longer in the last 50, 60 years. Longevity escape velocity means it takes 4 years to learn enough to potentially extend our life 1 year. And longevity escape velocity said, when are we going to hit that point where we're going to learn enough in a year to extend our life a year and learn enough in a year to extend our life a year? Some people say we're 12 to 15 years away from that, which means at that point, we might be able to write a book called Forever Young or nearly Forever Young. But in the meantime, we're aging at different rates, and we can define that without question. But it's a little bit bold to say we've conquered aging. It's fun to talk about. It's important. And there's nothing more important than knowing that you're young at heart and young at blood vessels. That's a message I see my peers missing. It's about telomeres and other measures. If your blood vessels aren't young, you're not young. So I might have to write a book called Young at Heart. And
yeah, great title.
Yeah.
Great title.
I have a mini book by that name, but it's, I think, maybe time for a full book.
Yeah, I love the name. It brings up a lot of questions when you say that. A diet, and I hope you don't mind. I'm just going to go all over the place with you. The when you said that about lifespan, life expectancy in the United States, et cetera. When I read some of the reports on obesity, and I always I say it with empathy with people that are struggling with weight issues. Yet it's and I see everybody at the fast food, those hellish fast food eating. Again, they call standard American diet SAD, SAD. Certainly, life expectancy is going to start dropping. Correct?
Yeah. We don't need any more data. We probably need to continue to educate the public that some people call it, it's fancy words, ultra processed food, hyper processed food, junk food, fast food, through the window in a yellow bag food, 50 ingredient food, 57 names for sugar that show up in food as an additive like maltodextrin. I don't think we've educated the masses. That's the background that I bring from having grown up in a kosher home. Before that, Mac meal is going into my mouth, or Burger King meal, or even an Impossible Burger, keep it relatively vegan. I'm going to flip it over and read the ingredients and see things I can't pronounce and see coconut oil and see such a long list. I'm not going to eat it. I'd rather go hungry. I'll go to I'll go to Wendy's and get a plain baked potato with nothing on it. And that's a one ingredient food that's never going to hurt you. But it's been part of this experience down in Florida. I'm living in a wonderful neighborhood, Airbnb, but it's a mixed neighborhood. It's a beautiful neighborhood. And I can't tell you how many Chick-fil-A, Wendy's, Burger King wrappers are on the ground. Unfortunately, I have no respect for people that throw their
Neither do I.
Garbage on the ground when there's a garbage can 20 feet away. It's another attitude problem. We don't respect, I think it's been said humans are the only species that shit in their own nest. If I can say that,
You just did. It's fine. Go for it.
A bird that would never soil their own home. But at any rate, we've got so much, we need to have food warnings, just like cigarettes have a big black box. And I don't think that'll do it. There should be food warnings all over the drive-through window, all over the inside of the restaurant. The Surgeon General has determined this will increase your risk of cancer, diabetes, early death, heart disease, erectile dysfunction, dementia, kidney disease, hypertension, and amputation. And once we get a little of that education in, it has dropped smoking rates, so it does work to educate people, but we also legislated no smoking at work and no smoking, at hospitals. And there's been an education process. We've really failed at doing it with food. And then we got to make tasty food available. It's not expensive, but we got this horribly warped food subsidy system where we're driving this availability of low cost, hyper palatable, toxic food. And the government's funding it, and then we're funding it through our tax dollars, supporting Medicare and Blue Cross, healthcare costs that are insane. I've been trying to counsel a patient in my clinic about not having a catheterization and a stent procedure on his heart, because I think we can manage them with diet and lifestyle and supplements. And he got a warning from the hospital, you're scheduled next week, and we have allocated $118,000 for your 10-minute heart procedure, and you need to come up with $3,000 of it as sort of a down payment. And my comment was, how many years could you feed your family with $118,000, even if you went, and people allege that eating plant-based is a bit elitist and more expensive, which doesn't need to be.
Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I also live in Florida, about 2 blocks from a Walmart, and I'm not a frequent Walmart shopper, but I've been visiting it. It's a nice little walk. And man, their organic produce department kicks butt. It does kick butt. I've never seen prices like that in my neighborhood in Michigan. So there is food available, but we got to educate. Of course, that's what you do, and that's what I'm passionate about. And it's not elitist. It's sad that people are sick and feel terrible and are dependent on a pharmaceutical, surgical, hospital system and die early when we really know a better path. We just need to make health the priority, real health, sincere health.
I'm talking with Dr. Joel Kahn, drjoelkahn.com. Again, we've got all the links up. And don't forget that summit, the Reversing Heart Disease Naturally Summit at DR Talks. And I'll talk more about that later. But the issue when you say that about the food and what people do, and when I see things that I'm trying to think of about Ozempic and things, now they're pushing it for weight loss.
And not real weight loss. I mean,
it's insane.
I have a lovely, lovely patient who asked me, she got some samples of a similar drug, same class, called Saxenda. It's a daily injection rather than a weekly injection. And there's Ozempic once a week and Wegovy once a week. And it's, of course, the rage in Hollywood and the rage in the modeling world and the rest. But, you know, her BMI was 25, body mass index. 25 is the upper limits of normal. And that doesn't mean we're as thin as Twiggy, but 25 means you're wearing a size 6 dress as a woman. And she asked me if I could continue this prescription. Turns out when she found out it was going to be $2,800 a month or something, she backed off. Thank God. But this pathology that these injections, and if people don't know what I'm talking about, these are about 6-year-old drugs developed for diabetes that prove to have an unusual side effect, pretty predictable weight loss, maybe as much as 20, 25, 30, 35 pounds, which for a drug is really record setting, and can create quite a few side effects. People don't want to eat, so they're nauseated, particularly you adjust the dose upscale. Every time you adjust the dose, some throw up. There is a gallbladder and liver issue you got to watch. And you try and get them to the top dose. And then if they're a type 2 diabetic, I can understand it. If you're a 240-pound, 5'3" woman with type 2 diabetes, and this drug helps you get under 200 pounds, and your blood pressure falls, and your cholesterol falls, and your blood sugar called hemoglobin A1C, and your insulin level falls, and maybe you need less metformin and Januvia and some of these other drugs. God bless you, because you're probably going to stay on that drug for a very long time. But the rage is people that aren't diabetic, and it is FDA approved for non-diabetics, called Wegovy. And people have figured out how to pay cash for it, and doctors have figured out how to start clinics for it. And I was mixed on it till I read an article and wrote a blog about it about 2 months ago. But if you look at what happens when you stop Wegovy, the injections, because at some point you might say, wow, I'm down 32 pounds and I'm down 3-4 dress sizes or suit sizes or pant sizes for a guy. There isn't really a good approach, maybe back off to every other week, every third week. At some point, you're probably going to stop at phenomenally expensive drugs, whether you get them through the prescription system or you pay cash, because people are paying cash. But anyways, within about 40 weeks, what is that, about 10 months, about 75% of the weight is back on your body. All the blood pressure benefit is gone. Most of the diabetic blood sugar benefit is gone. So it's not exactly a yo-yo diet. It's better than the HCG diet, which created also a lack of appetite and allowed people to eat a very low calorie diet for weeks and weeks. But to believe that we're at a point that the only answer we have is injecting yourself with a drug, the probably most shocking part, it is actually approved now, or at least endorsed by some endocrine societies, for kids over 12 with obesity. And clearly that's tragic. When kids have high blood pressure or diabetes, they're at certainly risk for early stroke, heart attack, and death. But the only solution we have, it's not a really psychological, food-based, kind of Dr. Joel Fuhrman addictive food approach. it's injections with very little experience. What might this do to a child, both psychologically and physically? So it's just an example of our warped medical system. I mean, if we could redirect some of those dollars into food psychology programs and food subsidies, that is really one of the root causes. Is high fructose corn syrup is cheap, and corn syrup is cheap, and the things that go into making, a cheeseburger, meat subsidies are, have made these foods cheap. But cheap is never cheap. Your health, your life is precious, and it's easy to pontificate. But, how often do you see a gigantic subsidized salad bar at a restaurant in an inner urban center? You just, you just don't see it often. I can tell you, I was director of corporate wellness at a major urban Detroit hospital system, inner city. And the day we announced we were going to try and stop fried chicken wing Wednesday and institute salad bar Wednesday was a revolution. But honestly, most of it was from the employees of the hospital, the nurses, physical therapists, respiratory therapists. And if your medical people are pushing back, we got to really do some kind of warp speed major summit and really institute a program here. It's sad. But you don't have to suffer from heart disease, and you can take control of your life, and you're not a robot, and you're not predetermined to have heart disease, even if you have some genetic input. Even if dad had a heart attack at 45, doesn't mean you need to have a heart attack at 45. We just need to get you early and check you aggressively and use technology, and then put in lifestyle and other therapies. And then no reason you need to be a statistic. I mean, live a long life. It's possible.
When you say that, Dr. Kahn, about again, the subsidies, and I talked about that government, again, tax funding, poor diet, and then all of the adverts with all the drugs. It's a bit nightmarish for me. A couple of emails I want to address. Sugar. Talk about sugar, if you would.
Yeah, I would put, number one probably is the excess of what we call saturated fat. That's butter, cheese, meats, animal foods, and a little bit coconut oil. And that really impacts even the vegan world, because vegan cookies, vegan ice cream, vegan cakes are made with coconut oil. They are very high in saturated fat. But for most people, we're talking butter, cheese, lard, meats, pork, bacon, hot dog, pepperoni, sausage, salami. That's number one traditionally on the science list for promoters of a high cholesterol, a lot of inflammation, high blood sugar, excess weight, and early death, early dementia, early diabetes, early kidney disease from high blood pressure. But number two has been for decades, has been added sugar. This is not a new concept. This goes back to the 70s at least, that added sugar. And there's 57 names for added sugar in foods. So you got to be a scientist to know that high fructose corn syrup and rice bran syrup and dark rice bran syrup and maltodextrin and on and on. It's not just all just, sugar. And you want to read, because they do report how much is sugar. And even in the last 4 weeks, I told you I'm a science junkie, a study of 110,000 people out of England with good dietary logs looked at added sugar, processed refined flour versus whole grains and natural sources of sugar called fruit. And there was a big uptick in heart disease, heart attacks, bypass, strokes, dying with added sugar and with refined flours, but not with the whole grains. Carbohydrates did not predict heart disease. Refined carbohydrates, added sugar predicted heart disease. Whole grains and natural sources of sugar, like an apple, an orange, a banana, and a guava and a papaya, did not predict heart disease. So you got to be very specific about your language. And even in this study, a small substitute, if you took out added sugar and put in whole grains, 100% whole wheat bread, whole wheat pasta like I had for dinner last night, spelt, quinoa, burgle, all the whole grains that are out there, you dramatically drop heart disease risk by substituting. So you can still have good food, but you don't want to outsource your health to somebody making refined, the classic is a donut. Donut is a perfect bomb for a heart attack. It's got the added sugar, it's got the refined flour, and it's got the frying. So it's got the saturated fat, usually in the lard in the old-fashioned donuts, maybe coconut oil in some of the other shops. And you're just inviting poor health, obesity, and heart disease when you're eating donuts. So I went all of 2022 without a donut. I actually walked in a donut shop 2 days ago. I walked into a donut shop. I heard their coffee was very good. I just couldn't tolerate it. I walked out. I made coffee at home.
Yeah, I've got Dr. Kahn, stevia. I've talked a lot about stevia. Again, you've got expertise. You're the scientist. You're the doctor. I'm not. But when I tell people, because I would eat a lot of sugar years ago, and I like certain things sweet, and I went to stevia. And one of the things I learned, because people say, "Oh, I get an aftertaste," it was interesting because I was dedicated to doing it. I wasn't going to do the added sugar. And after a while, I didn't get the aftertaste. And I spoke with someone that talks about microbiome, et cetera. He said that the microbiome actually adjusts the taste buds somehow. And that now they make the stevia sodas, that have no added sugar. Any thoughts on stevia? I'm sorry, I'm going on.
I'm not anti-stevia, anti-monk fruit. And although I'm certainly not a fan of diet sodas, there is data that a diet soda is a better choice than a sugar sweetened soda, where you've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teaspoons of sugar in a Minute Maid pink lemonade or a Coca-Cola, which you don't have, in a diet one. There are issues. Are you potentially upsetting your microbiome by using diet drinks and stevia and all? But it's a really minor issue versus the big one. There's that other one, do you perpetuate your longing for sweets in other ways when you add a drop or two of stevia to your coffee or your iced tea? But just make sure it's not a donut. Make sure it's an apple. Make sure it's an orange. More fruit, more health. I mean, and anybody that says it's not the case is not talking the science. Certainly for guys who are concerned about erectile dysfunction, there is clear-cut data that fruit is actually the best food on the planet to prevent that problem for some reason. We're also very good for prostate health too.
It's interesting when you say that. The people will, they've always got the critics out there. If they're not vegan, they want to criticize. If they eat a lot of sugar, they'll say, well, the juices, fruit juices, they see a lot of sugar in it, but it's not added sugar. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, if you were to wear one of those devices that is available called the continuous glucose monitor, and you take a nice drink of a green juice, cucumber, kale, collard green, you have to be pretty tough to drink that stuff. I like it. You'll see no bump in your blood sugar, but you do that with orange juice, apple juice, or even one of the green juices that's got a lot of apple in it. You'll see a rise in your sugar, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but you definitely want to not, pursue apple juice and orange juices without the fiber, if at all possible. So that's why I don't mind if you throw them in a smoothie. You still got the fiber around. You haven't
I see.
eliminated the antidote to your rise in blood sugar.
Yeah, the telomeres. If you got a couple more minutes, the telomeres you were talking about, because you wrote a piece on that. Tell us a little bit more about the telomeres.
Yeah, so that's a general topic, and it's something I mentioned already. Doc, if I knew that I was aging aggressively, I might finally make some changes. So can you actually measure your age? Can you follow it over time? Can you influence it? And when I'm talking age, everybody knows what their driver's license says, but I'm talking more like biologic age. And there are 5, 6, 7 different ways to do it. I think the one with the most weight is, do you know your artery age? And you can do that in a couple of ways. You can have a special ultrasound of the arteries of the brain called your carotid arteries. The special ultrasound is called the carotid IMT, capital I, capital M, capital T. So it's called the CIMT. We do them in my clinic all the time, did it in my Miami clinic while I've been down here. And we tell people, you're 54 years old, but your arteries are like a 63-year-old. We've got to work harder with some program to reverse that process, and it is reversible. The other way is to get a CT scan of your heart. That's called the coronary artery calcium score, CACS. It's about a $99 test in most hospitals, same radiation dose as a mammogram, which is considered quite low. You want to be a 0. If you're a 0, you've got a very youthful artery age, and you actually have a very youthful body. And if you have a calcium score, it can actually tell you that you're 54 years old, but your heart arteries are like a 67-year-old. And we got to do some work, and we got to work to prevent that from getting worse and worse with time. So that to me is the most important metric, because heart attacks, strokes, bypass surgery, stents still remain the #1 risk for all of us, including premature death. There are other ways like telomeres. Telomeres are the tips of your genes. And by swabbing your cheek and sending a sample off, you can get some lab to measure for $300, $400, $500. My telomeres are on track with my age. I'm 54 years old, and my telomeres say they're consistent with a 54-year-old. Not bad. They might come back at 40. They might come back that your biologic age is 70, and you've really burned yourself out with your lifestyle and exposure to smoke and radiation and alcohol and poor sleep and poor diet and obesity and blood pressure. It's still, despite a Nobel Prize in medicine in 2009 about telomeres and an enzyme that controls telomeres, it's still unclear that it's really ready for prime time. Some anti-aging research in clinics use telomeres, many don't. There's just 2 others I'd say. There's something called your epigenetic age. You can, again, swab your cheek, send it off to a variety of companies, get something back. It's sometimes called your epigenetic age, your Grimm age, GRIM age, or Horvath age. And again, maybe you're 54 years old and it comes back you're biologically 40. Yes, it's good. And you're biologically 70, you got a problem, and you work with somebody that can approach your lifestyle and, if needed, medication. The last one is called Glycan age, Glycan age. It's a very respectable science company. Again, swab, spit in a cup, send it off, $300, $400. That's the one I did personally most recently because of a research study I'm involved in. And it's a bit of a joke, but I'm 63. It came back saying, Dr. Kahn, you're 43 years younger biologically than your chronologic age. You're 20 years old internally. I chuckled. Makes me feel good. Some of the others I've done did not come back like that. This one did. Maybe all those years of not eating garbage, maybe all those years of a daily exercise program and a mindfulness program, and lately a much bigger focus on sound sleep might be real. I'm not planning to be here when I'm 150, but if I am, let's get on the show together and we'll do an updated.
I'm sure I won't be around, Dr. Kahn. Really quickly, supplements, if you don't mind. People are emailing coenzyme Q10. What are your thoughts? And I know they can go to your website.
Probably if I just picked a supplement out of the supplement bag and said, what's one that people could take with the confidence that science says it's worth the dollars and it's going to help them, not hurt them? It actually would be CoQ10, coenzyme Q10, something made naturally in the body. It's an antioxidant. It supports healthy heart muscle function, healthy skeletal muscle function. It's been shown in studies in Sweden to help prevent stroke and heart attack. It's been shown to lower blood pressure, lower cholesterol, help support and maybe reverse congestive heart failure, help lower blood sugar, probably reduces artery age. I'm not sure that study exactly has been done. So coenzyme Q10, 100 or 200 or 300 milligrams a day. In a big study about 8 weeks ago, reviewing all the science of supplements in a major journal, coenzyme Q10 actually was reported to reduce your risk of dying of heart disease. I think the number was 32% lower. For taking a vitamin, that's not a bad trade-off to be 32% lower risk of the #1 killer of men and women. And you multiply that by all the people in the world, and all the people in the United States, all the people listening to that, has a lot of benefit for one little pill a day. So I make sure I'm on CoQ10 every day, and I make sure most of my patients are. I'm working with a company in New Zealand to come out with a new version of CoQ10 that I think a game changer if you're taking a cholesterol medicine like Lipitor, but we'll have to talk about that next time we're around. Or if people sign on for the summit, I did interview the scientist that did that work. His name is Dr. Tan, Tan, and it was quite a lively, energetic, and informative interview.
In 48 hours, folks, you can go. And again, it's DR Talks. We've got all the links up. I don't want to keep you, but it's drjoelkahn.com. Dr. Kahn, I really appreciate it. I mean, I know you're down there vacationing, enjoying. I'm grateful for the time. I'm grateful for you and the world and your passion and what you do and how outspoken you are, and based on the science, not someone, I say, like me, that's coming up with ideas or theories.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the rarest job in the world I know of is to be a preventive plant-based cardiologist. And the most unlimited potential job is the same, because it's literally everybody from age 30 on should consider their preventive program, their diet, their sleep, their fitness, their nutrients, their supplements, their stress management, their breathing program. And it doesn't have to dominate your life, but you might just want to go to the salad bar instead of the fried bar. And you might just want to get 20 minutes of exercise in rather than 0 minutes. And I'm at a standing desk right now. I jerry rigged in this Airbnb, but at home it's treadmill desks. You got to work.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Surround yourself with a healthy environment, even if it's a bit odd by normative measures. So I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk about that.
I love your passion. I'm grateful, and we'll do it again soon.
I'll just tell you, my standing desk, my standing desk is a $35 card table I bought at Walmart, and a $10 plastic bin I put on top of it I bought at Walmart. So I found out I could create a desk at like exactly the right height for $45. I mean, it would have been at IKEA, $500, and
be creative.
I'm gonna pack up the desk and take it home. It works out so well. So
that's great.
Just like people say, they take 2-liter Pepsi bottles and they empty them and fill them with water, and then you got yourself, some barbells on the road. You don't have to spend $100 on barbells. You can spend, under $10 and create some barbells, but be sure to dump the Pepsi.
I was going to say, dump the Pepsi, don't drink the Pepsi, right? Dr. Kahn, thank you. Thank you for who you are in our world. I'm great.
Have a joyful day. Thanks for coming in on Sunday too. It's your rest day, I know too.
Oh, I anything to do the gig with you. Thanks, Doc, so much. I appreciate it. What an incredible guy, folks, and such important information that you can get.